So here we are, after a presidential campaign filled with racist rhetoric. We now have a Republican administration and a Republican Congress, and that Republican Congress is proposing a health care bill that discriminates and has a discriminatory impact on Black, brown, and poor Americans, while at the same time providing a bonanza to the whitest and the wealthiest among us. That is not an accident or aberration for the Republican Party. That's the way the Republican Party has been for at least half a century. So we talked in the last hour a little bit about how this bill would harm Black, brown, and poor households. Now let's talk a little bit about the racist rhetoric of the Republican Party. No, and by the way, sure, the Democratic Party has a history of racism too. That's how they kept power in the Jim Crow South for so long. But the Democrats, starting in the 1960s, went on a deliberate campaign of racial signaling to white people that they were the party of white people. Richard Nixon was openly racist in private. Listen to or read the White House tape logs sometime. He sought to undermine Democrats in 1968 when he ran for president the second time with what he called the Southern strategy, welcoming segregationists into the Republican Party. It worked. He fear-mongered based on the riots that had taken place in America's inner cities the year before, based on demonstrations against the war by white anti-war young people and so on. His law and order rhetoric, as he used it in 1968, was really a thinly disguised message. We'll help you by protecting you white people from those blacks and those hippies. His war on drugs was another racially based stratagem. His top aide, John Ehrlichman, admitted it later. Here's what John Ehrlichman said about the war on drugs. He said, "You want to know what it was really all about? We had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or blacks, but by getting the public to associate hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news." Oh, and by the way, Ehrlichman went on to say, did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. So that's the Republican Party using the war on drugs to demonize minorities. Reagan went after Black Americans viciously. He said, if you are a slum dweller, Reagan once said, you can get an apartment with 11-foot ceilings, a 20-foot balcony, a swimming pool and gymnasium. He goes on and on and on. Now, that was a lie. He also said there was a Cadillac driving, quote unquote, welfare queen. And she used 80 names, he said, 30 addresses. He went on and on. She made $150,000 a year. He was lying again. There was one woman in question. She was charged with using 4 aliases, not 80. She was convicted of fraudulently collecting $8,000, not $150,000 per year. But the welfare queen fit the Republican ideology and the Republican strategy perfectly. First, demonize minorities and people who need help, and then cut them loose and offer them no help at all. That rhetoric, we could go on and talk about how they did it during the Obama administration too. But let's be clear, that rhetoric and then following up that rhetoric with selfish, greedy bills like the health bill from the Republicans, it's what they do. It's who they are. Trump may be the ugliest, grossest example of this, but this is part and parcel of the Republican strategy, and it has been for 50 years.